Hi, I'm Ray, and welcome to my November 2025 reading journal. I'm a little late in dropping this video because the start of December was insanely busy for me. Me and my husband participated in a little fair that we bring 3D prints for, and it just took over like 2 weeks of December, so this is where I had time to actually finish this video up. So that's what we're doing. We're starting up with my starter pages, and I already made a mistake here because I read 7 books and watched 3 movies actually, but I only realized that way later, and I did go back to fix it. But for my year in pixels, and here's the fun bit, I actually read every day in November. I was so excited when I realized that. You can't really tell in the video because it's just my hands and you can't see me smiling like a goof. But it was very exciting when I looked through Storygraph and realized that I actually read every day in November, even though I only started finishing books in the later half of the month. And I might be able to read every day for December as well, because even though it was a really busy couple of weeks in the beginning of December so far, I have been able to read a little bit here and there, so I'm on track to do that as well. Now, we're skipping bingo because we are doing the reads for the bingo now in December, not in November, but we are doing the book club pages that I'm finishing up. I skipped tour season for November, but I did read Tiny Habits, but I finished that in December, so it's not in this video. And then for Buzzwordathon, I realized I actually read 2 books that fit 2 or 2, and I just printed out the one I read in November, one of the ones I read in November, An Ancient Witch's Guide to Modern Dating instead of A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. I could have used either of them. I just chose the one that I read more recently when I realized they fit there. As for my year in Goober, I actually didn't draw anything when I was setting this up. I just chose Peony for Prosperity and Connected to Wealth, which was Heavenly Tired by Sharon J. Zhao, that the characters are emperors, so it matches perfectly. And I didn't draw anything because I completely forgot when I organized myself to set these pages up. I completely forgot I needed my Prismacolors and to draw, so I didn't have a reference image. I didn't have anything organized to draw, so I was like, okay, I'll do that in December, and then we'll do November and December. But what I was able to do and I was so excited about was finally update my One Piece pages that I barely touched this year. The pink is what I read in 2024 and the yellow is what I read in 2025. As you can see, it wasn't much this year, but it was great. Another thing that got me really excited, that even though I only watched 3 movies this month, I was able to get 2 bingos with them. The first one being Straight Down on the Right, which I got by doing musical, which I watched Wicked for Good for, which was really good. I enjoyed it less than the first movie, but it looked better than the first movie for Wicked, so that was exciting to me. And then the other one was Straight Down on the Left, which I read based on a true story, Cidade de Deus or City of God, which is a 2002 Brazilian movie, which is really good, and it's honestly a classic Brazilian movie by now. Definitely recommend. And around this point is when I realized I actually watched 3 movies, not 2, because I watched Cidade de Deus by Fernando Meirelles, A Quiet Place Day 1 by Michael Sarnowski, and Wicked for Good by John M. Chu. So you can see that I'll flip back and fix my 2 into a 3, which I just scribble on top, honestly, because it was too much work to do anything else. But as for my ratings for the 3 movies I watched, I really enjoyed all 3 of them, but A Quiet Place was definitely my favorite out of the 3. But Cidade de Deus got 4 out of 5 stars. A Quiet Place Day 1 got 4.5 stars, and Wicked for Good got 3.5 stars. And it's just that, like, Wicked, the first part of the story is better than the second half, in my opinion. Cidade de Deus, it's honestly amazing. It's just that, I don't know, it got 9s across the board in my rating. And A Quiet Place, I was extremely moved through all of it. I adored the characters and I enjoyed myself throughout. So it got a couple of 10s. And that's why I got a higher rating than Cidade de Deus. And Wicked, I had questions throughout a lot of what was going on, and it got lower grades because of that. But watching those 3 movies got me into 34 movies out of 52. So I have so much work to do in December, and let me tell you, I am definitely not doing 52 movies this year unless something wild happens in the last 2-3 weeks of the year, because I haven't watched a single movie in December yet. I've been watching Heated Rivalry. and reading a bunch of books. So yeah, movies definitely not gonna get into the 52 that I said I would. It's okay, it happens. Not every challenge needs to be fulfilled, and this one's definitely not going to be fulfilled. I am focusing on finishing my bingo because I have 2 books left. I am halfway through one of them, and I am finishing my bingo. But here we are in my in 2025 page that I already have a plan to what I'm going to do with it for next year. And here's where I apologize, because my reading journal for next year, the video is not coming out probably until January, because I don't have my physical notebook with me yet, and I'm not gonna have it until probably like the 27th of December. So it's gonna be a while until I can get my hands into it and actually do everything, but I have everything planned out and I'm so excited to do it. I just don't have my notebook yet. It's gonna be a while until I can. So while I can't get my hands into my 2026 notebook, let's finish up my 2025 one. And for November, I read 7 books, which 4 of them I counted as One Piece, because whenever I read One Piece, I count the omnibuses as a volume read, because if I'm gonna count every single volume of One Piece that I read, is gonna be a crazy number. So I count the omnibuses whenever I read it, and I do make a mistake there. We'll go back and we'll talk about it. For my series tracker, I read number 2 in the Iron Widow series. I read Heavenly Tyrant, which was really good, and I'm just putting down that there will be a 3rd book. Honestly, there might be a 4th with how much stuff needs to happen still. I think this series is just gonna grow as Sharon J. Zhao writes it. And then for Adventures in Audia, as I said last month, I was halfway through this book when I recorded it, so now we can put down October, and we can put down actually no, we're not putting this down because I finished it in like the 7th of December or something, but I do have Tiny Habits down for my November, and I already finished my December read for Adventures in Audio, which you will know when we get to that video. But now we have my little shelfie in which I write down both the title of everything I read and the format of everything I read and how I read them, of course. And this is also something I will change how I do for next year. I'm telling you, I have everything planned out digitally. I have grids and layouts, everything ready. I'm so excited to get my hands into my notebook. I just don't have it yet, and it's killing me. But here's also where you see me write One Piece Omnibus volumes 24, 25, I don't even know, because I read them as the regular volumes. I just count them as the omnibus, because otherwise I would have like 80 books last year just from One Piece or something. So yeah, I count One Piece as omnibuses just to make my life easier when I count books. Also, One Piece goes a lot faster because it is a manga instead of a novel. But here's when I realized I made a mistake with Frankenstein, which was one of the other books I read this month, because I did it as an audiobook. It's just that I thought I did it as an ebook, because most of the things I read as an ebook, and I counted it as an ebook in my stats page, which I will go back to and fix. And the setup will completely change because I recorded this in so many different days at different times. It was wild. I had way too many videos to splice together to make this one video. I don't like doing that. I like recording as much as possible together, which I didn't do because I knew December was going to be crazy, which it absolutely has been. And we haven't even gotten to the holidays yet. And I'm traveling for the holidays, so it's going to be like a whole thing. I also don't know when my December reading journal video is coming out. At some point in January for sure. But for my fix up of my book stats that I did at some point, I grabbed a sliver of a page that I have from the back of this notebook, because I have very little extra page that I can cut from anywhere in this book. So I got this, cut it up on 2 sides, and just covered my mistakes and wrote on top of it. And I just glued it with a glue stick because it just makes my life easier. I like using a glue stick. I don't have a problem with it. I know some creators don't really like glue sticks. I find that it works just fine most of the time, as long as I remember to close my glue stick so it doesn't dry out, which I keep forgetting to do. So this glue stick, I have no idea how it's still working, honestly. But now that some mistakes have been fixed, we can get on to my November cover spread. And I had a really good time doing it because I did things a little bit differently. So for my November cover, I started with this mustardy yellow paper to do like a little ground for everything. And I decided to do a type of collage that I haven't done in a while. And it's a collage using people's business cards. I used to go to a lot of art shows when I lived in Toronto because I went to OCAD. I have a bachelor in illustration, which was really fun to do. But because of that, I used to go to a lot of art events and fairs and different things, and I used to get people's business cards, both to follow them and to have a little bit of their work with me. And for this collage, I used a business card by Kunyu Zhang. Their on their business card no longer works. I have also Elise Conlin. Their does work, so you can go follow them. I also have Isaac Robin, which is Skeleton House on Instagram, and I have Aaliyah Gar, Aaliyah Draws Things on Instagram. I have Elisa Salah, Salate in Instagram. I also have Karina Bernica. Her, I could not find neither on Instagram or LinkedIn or anything. And lastly, I have Keeling Gorleski, which is Keeling G over on Instagram. And it was so fun doing this collage, but first things first, for this collage I had to make everything a little bit thinner because these are business cards, so they're quite thick. And here I'm just showing how I did that with Salah's business cards because hers was the thickest, so it was easier to show how to do it. Just be careful because you are using a knife to do this, so don't cut yourself, basically. And for the collage, I was just moving things around, trying to find the right position for everything. And as you can see, Kunyu's business card, I made a boo-boo and it got cut in half. But it worked out because I just put it right in the middle so it would be separated between the two pages. And it worked out like that. And here I'm just gluing it down because I know that's exactly where that one is going to go. And I absolutely adored this little illustration that they put in the business cards. I really wish I could re-find them on Instagram, but I could not find them at all. Like I went through everybody's ads and tried to find their website or something, because these business cards are a bit older. They are quite a few years old by now. So people changed their ads, they changed websites and stuff like that. So some of the information on the business cards themselves are a little bit out of date. So I used their names to try to find them. Kunyu and Karina Bernica, I could not find at all. Some of them they kept, like Elise Collin and still Elise Collin. Salah was still Solitaire, but some of them changed it up and I couldn't find them. So if you know these artists, please let me know because their works are really good and it's fun to follow them. Also, don't be like me and forget your knife out for minutes and minutes on end. And definitely don't be like my husband that I have to remind him every time to put your knife away. Just put your knife away. Be safe out there. Knives are sharp and you can get hurt. But having decided where everything goes and have glued everything down, you saw me move things around and trying to decide where the title November would go. I decided to go with November on the upper left corner. And here's a little PSA. Whenever you pencil something in, take your time and do it with calm so you know it looks good before you go and put your pen in. Because what happened was I was like, yeah, I can just wing this. And I just did it without using a ruler that was sitting right there on the table beside me. So I just winged blocky letters and they ended up looking terrible, as you can tell. And I was like, oh yeah, that is totally done. Later on, I came back another day and I was like, I don't like that. Let me do this. And I'm like, no, that is terrible, actually. Let me do something else to it. So I grabbed a white Posca and I was trying to fix it. And then I was like, no, this looks even worse somehow. And then my Posca decided to have a moment and exploded on me, as you can tell right there. It's not pretty. And I was like, I can totally fix it. I can totally fix that. And I just kept going, trying to make it work. And it just kept looking worse because I did not have a plan. Definitely have a plan, people. It definitely helps things to look better. So what I did was that I grabbed a piece of paper and I covered it up, because what else can you do when something like that happens? Because that was ugly. Just fix your mistakes, cover them up. No one needs to know unless you show everybody that you did that, which I am doing now. So I just went for a regular script font that I just wrote down, put 11 to be cute, and that was it. And glued that on top of things, and it looks better, and that's what I'm going with. And to finish up my November cover, I just put down the books that I read for November, which were, in order, Heavenly Tyrant by Sharon J. Zhao, An Ancient Witch's Guide to Modern Dating by Cecilia Edward, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, and then One Piece by Eiichiro Oda, which I read from volume 70 all the way up to volume 81, which is basically all of Dressrosa and about half of Zoe, for those that know how One Piece is divided and care about it. I do gotta say though, if you don't want any spoilers whatsoever about One Piece Dressrosa, do not watch the part of the video that has One Piece in this, because I do have some images. I don't normally print anything for my review pages, but for this One Piece review I wanted to print some images from the arc. So I have images of characters and stuff from Dressrosa. So if you don't want to know anything, just skip my One Piece pages. I won't say anything, but there will definitely be visual spoilers on the page. So if you don't want to see anything, just skip. And I'm just writing down my star ratings for everything right now. Heavenly Tyrant got 4 stars. Ancient Guide got 3.5 stars. Frankenstein got also 4 stars. And then One Piece, it got between 3 and 4.5 stars for Dressrosa. Because it's omnibuses, it's different volumes, it's different chapters. It just went everywhere, basically. And now for my first book spread for November. The first book I finished was Heavenly Tyrant by Sharon J. Zhao, which is a second book in a series. And I can't talk about it unless you want spoilers, which I don't want to give you spoilers unless it's a proper video review of just this book, so you know what you're clicking on. So I won't say anything really about this book. What I will say is that it is a very different book from the first one, in the sense that the first one was more focused on the sci-fi fights aspect of the story that Zhao brought us, and then the second one is more interested in the sci-fi political part of the story that they are weaving. I guess that's what I can say. Heavenly Tyrant is the second book in the Iron Widow series that starts with Iron Widow that came out a few years ago, and Heavenly Tyrant came out in 2024, and I actually reread Iron Widow to be able to read this one, because I just needed to get reacquainted with the story and the characters, because there is a lot going on in definitely, and a lot of like different aspects of it, and there's definitely way more happening in this one. It is a bit of a chunkier book. It is 525 pages, and it took me over a week to finish it, and there's just a lot going on in this book. I really can't say anything. Let's talk about decorations. So for the decorations for this page, I wanted to keep it minimal because I knew I had a lot to say about every aspect that I review. So I tried to keep it very minimal. I used this golden washi tape to tie in with the book cover itself, and then I used this black tape with golden stars that relate a little bit to the sci-fi aspect of the story. And to finish it off, just to bring it a little bit of flair, I used this BT tape with this kind of Asian clouds. It honestly reminds me of how Clamp draws clouds. Clamp, the manga artists, draw clouds. So I think it goes with the setting of the story that is based very, very loosely on the ancient Chinese empress Wu Zetian. That is not a spoiler because that is literally the premise of the first book. But as for my review itself, please, 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 if you do not want spoilers, do not read anything that I'm writing right now, because the reason why I kept the decorations on this page so minimal is because I had a lot of things to think through and understand as I thought about this book. So there's more spoilers than normal on this review, so definitely don't read it if you don't want to know anything. However, I will give you the ratings that I gave to the different aspects of the story that I do use while doing my reviews. First, it was characters, which I gave 8 points. Then it was atmosphere, which I gave 7 points. Relationships, another 8 points. Plot, which I also gave 8 points. And enjoyment, which I also gave 8 points, which brings it to a 7.8, which in my rating means it was a 4-star book. And to finish off my very, very vague review of Heavenly Tyrant, I want to read the 2 quotes that I do put down on this page. I don't think they are spoilery. I only think that they explain a little bit of what this book is about, but no spoilers, I don't think. The first one is, a society that takes care of its own does not produce children who grow up dreaming of burning it down. And I think this one actually relates more to the first book, but it also explains a lot of what's going on in this book. And then the second quote is, in the name of stability and security, they condemn only the violence that challenges the status quo, never the violence that perpetuates it. And both of these quotes are talking about this book, but also about our own world, which is something that really made me enjoy the story a lot. And it also talks a little bit about what kind of story Shiran Jaja was trying to tell. And although I don't think they were always successful, I think they really did a good job trying to bring it to life. So you let me know if me reading these quotes gave you proper spoilers or not. I don't think it did, but let me know. And after Heavenly Tyrant, I read Cecilia Edwards' An Ancient Witch's Guide to Modern Dating, which is way too long of a title for such a short book. That being said, for the decorations of this page, I decided to lean heavily on the purple cover and just do an assortment of purple things, plus a little dash of yellow, because purple and yellow look great together. For the yellow dash, I got a little bit of the paper that I used for my November cover into the background, and also this girl sticker that was the closest thing I had to a witch, honestly, and I thought it made sense. It brings the modernity of the story, and she has a pointy hat, which is a big part of the character design we are supposed to think of when we think about Thorn, the main character of this book. To top it all off, I added the purple shiny tape from the same set of the golden washi tape that I used for the Heavenly Tyrant spread, as well as this purple mushroom washi tape that I got over at Shopee that I thought was a really good match to the story as well, because she is a gatherer of ingredients to make her potions and spells. And then the little kitty cat, I did not have a white cat sticker, so I used this black one with the stars, so it would represent the cat's lives, which I thought was really cool. As for my review itself, this book, I was comparing it a lot to Sangu Bandana's A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, which I preferred by a long shot. So I feel like I didn't give this book a fighting chance because I was comparing it to Sangu Mandana's, whose writing I enjoyed a lot more, and I think that the characters were more complex. This one kind of reads sort of like a middle grade romance, even though the main character is 39, because a big part of the premise of the story is that she's about to turn 40 and she's still alone. But it does, like, the way the characters are written, it just feels very made towards a younger audience. And I think that might be because Edward is normally writing children's books, from what I gather. So I think my sort of subpar enjoyment of the story is a mix between me comparing it to a better written novel, in my opinion, and the expectations that I had for this book itself. I think that is a fair assessment of my enjoyment of the story. With that explained, I gotta say, my ratings for this book was mostly 7s across the board. I gave it 7 for characters, atmosphere, relationship, and plot, and I gave it 6 for enjoyment, which brought it to a 6.8 or a 3.5 stars, which I think is a fair assessment of this book, even though I think I might have been a bit harsher on my rating of this novel because my expectations did not match the actual novel, which might have been something I also struggled with the next book I read, which was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. But let me talk decorations first. So I actually based this off this beautiful spread by Amanda Made that she did in October, I believe, and I unfortunately was like, oh, let me figure this out, and then I made the entire collage off camera. I apologize. But basically, I wanted to match the collage to the cover I printed for Frankenstein, which is not the cover of the book I read because I did it in audiobook, and Frankenstein has so many covers that I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna choose a pretty cover and do that. But basically the collage, I got an illustration from an old anatomy book that I bought a couple of years ago now at a used bookstore, and that I bought so I could use it for collaging. And I glued the illustration over some text from the same book and used a little PET vine tape to add a little bit of color to that illustration as well. And here you can see me just struggle to keep it down because the paper is really thick and it did not glue well. So I brought out this little washi tape with the flowers that also matched the color scheme that I had going on. And as you could see, I drew in some bones on the black paper. I used my thin white Posca to draw it in, and it worked out really well. I really enjoyed the way it turned out. I never drew bones in white paper before, and I definitely want to do it more often. It made me miss my anatomy classes in art school, and this is just me struggling to find a proper position for the cover. And this cover, it was one of the prettiest one I found online. I loved how bold Frankenstein's written and how easy it is to read it, and that's why I chose it. And here you can see the little illustrations I did with the bones better. I did a couple of femurs, a little bit of a hand, and a little bit of an iliac crest. And here I just zoomed in a little bit on this heart illustration that I'm doing. I just grabbed a anatomical correct heart from the internet and just drew it out. It honestly made me remember that when I was in art school for a good semester, I want to say, I thought about going into medical illustration, but that required so much more studying that I was not mentally prepared to do because I was just so done with school at that point in my life. So I did not want to study even further to go into medical illustration, but I still have a lot of fun drawing bones and organs. And sometimes I draw eyes from my parents and my sister because they are doctors, so sometimes I get to do a little bit of medical illustrations for them, so I get to live out that possible career path that I did not take. But this is basically how I did the bone illustrations in the black paper. I just used a white Posca instead of a Pigma Micron. As for Frankenstein, the book, I had to keep reminding myself that this book was written in 1818 because I kept expecting subversions of the tropes, and I had to keep reminding myself that this book is literally the origin of so many tropes. So there's no way it was going to subvert tropes that it was actually creating. So that definitely made it for a interesting reading experience. Because the thing is, well, Frankenstein's a story that I kind of knew about it, of course, because it is part of the zeitgeist, but I never read it. I didn't know about the prose and what Mary Shelley actually wrote. So it was an interesting discovery of the text and of the characters and how Mary Shelley wrote the story itself. And I don't know, I had a weird relationship with it. And I guess I'll go a little bit into spoilers, but then again, it's Frankenstein is kind of one of those stories that it's everyone kind of knows what it is about and how it happens. But the thing that I really struggled with this book, it's because I wanted more out of the characters. Because we have a lot from Victor and a lot from the creature, but not about anyone else, basically. Even Elizabeth, who is a driving force for Victor, and the rest of the Frankenstein family, really, they are not actual characters here, and I really struggled with that because having them not be fully fleshed out characters, it really hurts their relationship with Victor and with the creature, especially because of how the creature uses them to torment Victor with. That being said, I really did enjoy reading Frankenstein. I'm glad I'm reading more classics, and I'm glad I picked this one up. For my ratings, I gave it 8 for characters, 8 for atmosphere, 7 for relationship, and absolutely 10 for plot, and 8 for enjoyment, bringing it out to an 8.2 or 4 full stars. And I stand by this. It's a classic for a reason, and if you've never read Frankenstein, definitely give it a shot. I really, really enjoyed it. Now, my next spread is going to be One Piece, specifically for Dressrosa. If you don't want any spoilers whatsoever, look away. Because although I won't go into anything that happens, there is going to be visual spoilers for characters that show up in this. With that out of the way, I will say that Dressrosa is probably one of my favorite arcs out of One Piece so far. It is very well constructed. It introduces us to a bunch of new fun characters that I cannot wait to see more of. It gives us a lot more information about the world of One Piece, and it probably gives some of the most heartbreaking backstories for some of the characters. It also gives us one of the best villains of the story, which is Doflamingo, and that is not a spoiler to say that Doflamingo is the main villain of Dressrosa, because I think saying who the main villains of each arc of One Piece is not really a spoiler. But while I kind of hate Doflamingo, he's a great villain and he was a formidable foe in this arc. There's not much more I can say about Dressrosa itself, but what I will say is that if you ever had an inkling to read One Piece, definitely give it a shot. Do not be intimidated with how long it is, although it is intimidating. I'm on volume 82 and I still have so much to go. So it is intimidating, but don't let that stop you. One Piece is approaching its end, so there is a light at the end of the tunnel for those that want it to be done. That being said, I wish I had kept up with it from when I was a little kid in 2005 or something, probably before then, when it was on my television and I was actually watching One Piece. I remember in the English dub because I was practicing my English at the time. I remember watching it on television, and I wish I had kept up with it and had been reading it for the past 20 odd years, so I wouldn't be playing catch up with it right now. I am determined to catch up to One Piece so I can read it as it finishes, because I am pretty sure One Piece is on its final stretch. I've been avoiding spoilers like the plague. Somehow I have not been spoiled for basically all of it going forward, and I'm so happy with that. I didn't know anything past Alabasta last year when I started reading it, because that is pretty much how far I watched when I was watching it as a kid, and I am so glad that happened. Like, the only thing I knew were some of the Straw Hats that I hadn't met yet at the time, and that was it. I didn't know anything about the story, and I'm glad it happened like that. So if you have any inkling or any wish to read One Piece but you are terrified about its length, give it a shot. One Piece is approaching its final stretch, and you might be mad at yourself if you are not in the bandwagon and end up reading One Piece after it's done. As for me, I have a little over 30 volumes to read for me to catch up to One Piece. So I'm in the home stretch for my own reading, and I'm really excited about that. As for my rating of One Piece, I actually did not use my card-based system, mostly because I kept debating if I should do the arc, the volume, the omnibus, the chapters. I couldn't decide, so I ended up with a vibe-based system based off the omnibuses. So every 3 volumes I gave a star rating, and some volumes were better than others. Some chapters were absolutely perfect, some were not. So the rating varies between 3 stars and 4.5 stars, with my favorite being Omnibus 26 or volume 76, 77, and 78. What a tongue twister saying that many 70s in a row. And that's what I read in November. Please let me know if you read any of these books and if you agree with my ratings, or if you disagree, why do you disagree with them? I would love to know. And if you are reading One Piece, or if my spiel has convinced you to read it, please let me know. I need more people to talk One Piece to. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you've had a great time. Bye.